There are other opportunities, and even in this election year, there don't have to be partisan issues. Things like a financial transaction tax, which could be used to fight extreme poverty and help unemployed young people in Europe and in Africa. This stuff is not left or right, it's not Irish or Frenchish. Neither are these issues African or Middle Eastern, they're human issues. And you, as you stand, and as you serve, you can make clear that these are Europe's concern and European values. And I might add, the G8 next year could be exactly the right place to make that case. 2015 is a very big year in the fight against extreme poverty, the redesigning of the new Millennium Development Goals into the so-called Sustainable Development Goals. It's a very, very big deal. Chancellor, you're the right woman to lead this. You say it better than I can. Öko, Sozial, Macht, Wirtschaft. That's not bad. Öko, Sozial, Macht, Wirtschaft. For those of you who don't speak German, I believe that is eco-social market economy. Sounded like a German heavy metal band to me, but I love the idea of it. So, to close. Actual community or bollocks community? Real neighborliness or people bound together by red tape speaking Eurobabble? Does this sound soft to you, Irish blarney to you? Because it's not. It's hard, and you know it's hard. It's hard in concept, and it's even harder in execution. Let us remember where the idea of one Europe really came from. It is prescient this afternoon to do so. What Winston Churchill in 1946 called the tragedy of Europe, the alternative, he said, to tearing each other to pieces was to recreate the European family, or as much of it as we can, and provide it with a structure under which it can dwell in peace, in safety and in freedom. Churchill's words. Aren't those still the stakes this afternoon? And are we not seeing the rise of extreme nationalism again? Not the kind of nationalism of, I'm proud to be Irish, which I am, but you know the kind of nationalism I'm talking about, the ugly kind, the primal hate, especially when times are tough. You see Europeans turning against immigrants, migrants. You see people turning against Roma, searching for scapegoats. Sometimes it's a Jewish scapegoat, sometimes it's a Roma, sometimes it's African, sometimes it's gay. Nationalism, extreme nationalism, isn't choosy. It's an equal opportunity hater. And it's not welcome. And make no mistake, its real victim is the idea of Europe, the idea behind Europe. Because nationalism like this depends on the idea of purity, and Europe depends on this idea of plurality. I want to argue that Europe can't just be a logical alternative to nationalism. It must become an impassioned one, an affair of the heart as well as the head. Our plurality needs to show itself with purpose, like that Gaelic word, miha. We hear that ideal by many different names from the young European activists who are telling us, telling you, to stand by the poorest of the poor. Activists like the youth ambassadors of the One campaign, who, Chancellor, you met this time last year. There's now nearly 4 million One campaigners around the world. So you'll be hearing from them on your campaign trail. And we hear that ideal also from the activists who risk their lives, and in some cases have lost their lives, in Maidan, in Independence Square, in Kiev. One of those activists had made a handwritten sign that I read. It said, "Europe starts with you." And she stood alone, this young woman. I believe her name was Anastasia. She stood alone with her sign, "Europe starts with you," beside a monument in a dark, cold November, before the violence, before the crowds had even started to build. Europe starts with you. That's what she wrote. That was her challenge to her fellow Ukrainians. But the challenge is not just theirs, it is ours. In that speech in 1946, Winston Churchill looked back at the collapse of the League of Nations, the well-intentioned instrument that failed to keep its peace. The League of Nations, the great man said, did not fail because of its principles or conceptions. It failed because these principles were deserted by the states who brought it into being. Nearly 7 decades later, we know Europe is strong, and Europe can be stronger still. Our principles will not fail us, but in the spirit of Sir Winston, let us not fail our principles, because the world needs Europe, and Europe starts with us. Thank you.